You're listening to Career Coaching with John, thoughtful approaches for lasting change. My name is John Fielkowski, and welcome. Today's episode is called We're Here for a Good Time, Not a Long Time. Stories about making the best of lousy situations. Side note, we need to talk about Trooper. Trooper isn't exactly an introspective band. They didn't sing about communing with birds or outer space. They sang about causing trouble. Raise a Little Hell, The Boys in the Bright White Sports Car. They were anthems for blowing off steam. Songs you played at the cottage with a Molson X in hand. Not exactly soul-searching stuff. And they did have one song that's a bit different. Released in 1977 on the album Knock 'Em Dead Kid, We're Here for a Good Time, Not a Long Time never really went anywhere, peaking at number 43 and only in Canada. But if you've lived in Canada long enough, you know most of the words. I heard it once it was written about trying to find joy while living or touring in Vancouver. The rain, the grayness, the quiet feeling that life might pass you by. It's simple, it's humble, it's uniquely Canadian. It's a song about joy and impermanence. And if you've ever worked a contract job, done shift work, or said yes to something you know you probably shouldn't have, you already know the feeling. Now for me, Canadian classic rock was the sound of the town I grew up in. Trooper, April Wine, BTO, Loverboy. These weren't throwback playlists. This was current rotation. It's what played in the garage, at the hockey rink, at the gas station. It's the background hum of working class optimism and resignation. It's the kind of music that your dad would listen to. Well, not my dad, but the dads on my hockey team. So when Trooper sings, We're here for a good time, not a long time, so have a good time. The sun can't shine every day. It doesn't sound like defeat. It sounds like a plan. Well, that's the lens for today. We're going to talk about impermanence. We're going to talk about making the best of a bad situation, about not needing the perfect role to make a meaningful impact. The title to take something seriously. And you don't need to be in the right job to show up fully right now. So let's talk about how to do that and what happens when you do. Well, this is Career Coaching with John, episode 8. We're here for a good time, not a long time. My name is John Fielkowski. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Career Coaching with John. In today's episode, we're exploring impermanence, misaligned jobs, and how to make the best of a lousy situation. Because sometimes that is exactly where the good stuff lives. Let's start here. These are the jobs that we don't care about. The temp roles, the filler gigs, the just until something better comes along positions. Maybe even just the ones we hate. And precisely because we don't care deeply about them, they give us two rare gifts, if you're willing to accept them: clarity and freedom. When you're not trying to climb the ladder or impress anybody, you get perspective. You start to see the room clearly, who actually runs the place, where dysfunction is, what works and what doesn't. There's research that backs this up too. A study in personal psychology found that temp workers often report a lower job strain precisely because they're not weighed down by long-term expectations. That reduced pressure creates room for insight, initiative, and sometimes even transformation. Well, you don't need to have the next job figured out. But in these short-term, misaligned, beneath you roles, you do get to practice a version of yourself that you might want to grow into. Look around. What do you see? These jobs give you a front row seat in how other people work. You see different departments, different roles, different personalities, and sometimes you might even catch yourself thinking, hey, I could do that. Or why didn't I go after a job like that? Or, well, what will it take to get a job like that? Well, don't waste that curiosity. You might meet somebody who shows you a new way of working. You might make a connection that turns into an opportunity, or you might even get clear on what you don't want to do, and that's just as valuable. But you also get something else, the freedom to try something new. Now I hear you saying, I'm nobody. Exactly, you're nobody. You don't have to protect anything because you're nobody. You don't have to play it safe. Again, you're nobody. What better place to start experimenting? Start small if you're shy, but start. It could be a way to open your mind to a new you. In these so-called throwaway jobs, you're surrounded by stories, and if you're paying attention, they'll tell you something useful. I am here to convince you that there is value in everything you do. So let's talk about the jobs that you think are beneath you. The ones you take out of desperation or boredom or just to fill a gap. The ones that you assume aren't going to lead anywhere. I used to think like that. And then I took a job managing a bike shop. Yeah, I think I started my career on a high. Like winning a big hand early in the game, I got jobs with great titles but shallow fundamentals. I think my struggle moving through my career was that I had a hard time matching those titles with what actually interested me now or then. As such, I saw myself as someone who was very capable but profoundly misunderstood. At the time, I didn't really think much of it. I thought this bike shop job was going to be a joke. I had just come out of a run of high-up positions in nonprofits that didn't end all that well. I didn't care about bikes specifically, though I do love riding. I always found that the kit was the most obnoxious part of cycling culture. And I didn't think managing a bike shop would teach me anything I didn't already know. I took it because I needed the money, and I liked the guy that offered it to me. What I didn't expect was that it would become one of the most important professional labs I ever had. That bike shop job taught me more about logistics, staffing, customer service, systems thinking, and mentorships than any other formal leadership role I had before. I had to make fast decisions, build procedures where there were none, mentor staff that didn't want to be there. I had to deal with chaotic inventory, impatient customers, and 100 tiny freaking fires a day. I had to coach people through their darkest moments and their highest highs, all during a global pandemic. And in the middle of that chaos, I learned how to manage, for real. When your ego gets out of the way, when you stop obsessing about whether the job is impressive enough, or strategic enough, or perfectly aligned with your 5-year plan, more on that later, you start actually seeing what's in front of you. And if you pay attention, there's almost always something to learn. And that's what I mean when I say treat the job like a lab, treat it like a sandbox. Not because the job is beneath you, but because it's not precious. You're not locked in, and because you can leave, you are free to try things, build things, and practice being the kind of professional you want to be. So yes, the role doesn't match your resume. And sometimes you might be wildly overqualified, but it doesn't mean you can't find growth. And if you show up with the right mindset, you might walk out sharper, smarter, and more confident than you've ever been. And because this job is temporary, you don't have to care. But you can care about your growth. Now, I wonder now, did I stay in cycling too long? After 2 roles in 2 different companies, I did exhaust the opportunities I had to offer. But maybe I didn't, because I came out of it with 2 sweet bikes and a real plan for my future. For the first time in my life. Well, so much of employment revolves around the power dynamic between employer and employee. We often think that the person who has the money, who has the business, holds all the control. I'm not sure it's that simple. You bring your labor, your education, and your ideas to the table. They have a need. Focus on that. Let's stop pretending that interviews are just about landing the job, because they're not. They're about building a relationship. The interview is the first moment where both sides get to preview that relationship. Not just what's on paper, because that's what got you there, but how it actually feels to be in a room together. Think of it as a first date without the potential for romance, most of the time. You're going in as equals. This is your chance to show them who you are, but also to gauge who they are. Back when I interviewed for the bike shop role, I, again, knew I really didn't want the job. I was not thinking I was the right guy for it either. But I went in with an open mind, and I liked the guy that interviewed me. So I thought I'd have a little fun with it. He asked me, "Where do you see yourself in 5 years?" I said, "Prison." It was a joke. But he laughed. And that started a really interesting conversation on the nature of work, of hospitality, of working with challenging people. Did he care that I didn't know the difference between the 7 different kinds of 12-speed Shimano chains? No. Because I was a guy who knew how to think for himself. So in the process, I started asking much bigger questions. Not just, well, what does success look like? I asked, what are the biggest challenges facing your team? What are the biggest challenges that you face? What makes you upset? What kind of person are you? What kind of a manager are you? How open is the ownership to new ideas? How open are they to constructive criticism? Is this a team stuck in their ways? Or are they open to change? I ask these sort of questions because they matter to me. I want to be paid for my ideas, and I want the person who pays me to be open to them. Not because I'm trying to get the job. You're not limited to the bullet points of the job posting. If you've got experience in another area that could be useful, we'll talk about it. If you see a problem they haven't mentioned, offer a thought. If you notice something about the culture that makes you pause, ask them how it's being addressed. It's your time. You're showing them what else you bring with you. Give them an opportunity to impress you. When you're done with that interview, think about what you've learned. It's important. Then send them an email, a thank you email, because it's the polite thing to do. Thanks for your time. Then add, here are my suggestions. Here's the role that I think is missing in your organization. Well, there are 2 reasons why you might want to do this for a job you don't want. First, you don't want the job, but you never know who you're going to talk to. This could be a moment that someone at the table thinks, we could use a person like this, and we could use them in a bigger way. The second reason is about practice. The ideal job isn't the one that's out there, it's the one that you create. And how do you create something great if you don't practice telling people what matters to you in a way that resonates? Well, so much about what I talk about is about power and confidence. And the power derived from confidence. But both of those things are earned. I think managers hate interviewing because it's boring talking to weenies who don't know what they want. Well, show up with confidence, and they will want to impress you because people want to impress power. And if they don't like that, you don't want to work for them anyway. People aren't going to magically recognize your potential, right? They will see what you show them. And most of us were not showing enough. I have a little story. I once worked at the auto show. Well, I worked in the auto show back in March, polishing cars. I didn't want to be there. I took the job for the money, but as a favor. It felt beneath me. It was boring. It was mindless. A waste of time while I was trying to build my business that I was just getting excited about. I'll admit, I was bitter having agreed to this thing. But then I noticed one of the product specialists assigned to the Ford Bronco booth. He was a tall guy. He wore tight-fitted clothing. He had frosted tips in his hair. Wore blue-tinted glasses. He was a little awkward. Kind of shy. Clearly not into it. My friend and I made fun of him for a bit. We figured he wasn't taking seriously. But then something shifted. By day 2, he started developing a character. By day 3, he had a name, Billy Bronco. He had fictional kids, a backstory. He had a passion for off-road driving and mountain biking. By day 5, his family grew. His car wasn't big enough, so he needed a Ford Expedition. And then people were taking selfies with him. He was signing autographs. Someone actually said to me, I got Billy Bronco's autograph. None of that was part of his job. He just decided to do it. And you know what the best part was? Everybody else supported it. You should have heard them. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Billy Bronco. Line up for your autograph. Now, he didn't do this because he was an obnoxious, flashy dude. Whenever he would finish his speech, he would go, hide. But he created a character with energy and presence and a story. And you know what? That changed everything for me and the people around him. Well, I started to loosen up. I started talking to people, telling them what I actually did outside of polishing cars. I networked, I made connections. And all of this because one guy decided to start having fun. We think sometimes we need to be given permission to be visible. We don't. You don't need a title to show up like someone worth remembering. You just have to show people something worth seeing. Well, this is Career Coaching with John. Let's take a break. Welcome back to Career Coaching with John. That was an Appalachian instrumental with banjo and fiddle by Nick Panic. Though to me it was the ballad of Billy Bronco, driving his Bronco Sport through the backcountry roads of Kentucky. That man's got a whole life out there in the dirt. Now here's a interesting fact. That track that we listened to, that was AI generated. Nick Panic is an American artist who uses artificial intelligence as his medium. Well, right on, man. Welcome to the 21st century. So, have you picked up on the Career Coaching with John theme yet? Well, this is episode 8 of the podcast, and if you're listening closely, you might have noticed one big idea that I keep coming back to. I'll give you a second to think about it. You got it yet? Make the most of your life. You are in charge. Because you don't want to know what the most effective form of control is. It's not a big stick, and it's not someone yelling in your face. It's making you feel like you're not good enough. That's the trick. And it's old. It's older than capitalism, older than the Catholic Church, and it's older than Instagram. Make someone feel like they're not good enough, and they will fall in line. Hell, I will do it too right now. Ready? You suck. You'll never go anywhere. Now give me your money and shut up. Now, are we surprised after hearing that, or at least feeling that people are burned out? I'm not. You've been made to feel like you're not allowed to want more unless somebody else decides you've earned it. So when someone does that to you, let's think. Let's go back to that title of today's episode. We're here for a good time, not a long time. It's not just about wringing meaning from crappy jobs. It's also about knowing when to leave them. There is this story that we're told that perseverance equals character. But not every job is worth your perseverance. Not every workplace is worth of your loyalty. Sometimes the boldest, smartest, and healthiest thing you can do is to decide you're done. Not in a flaky way, not in a dramatic burn it all down way, but in a grounded, informed, and intentional way. You came, you saw, you learned something, and now, thanks guys, but I'm done. Leaving, in this case, is an act of self-trust. I said self-trust. It means you know what matters to you, and you're not willing to wait around for someone else to figure that out. So many people stay in misaligned jobs because they feel this obligation to the status quo, and they're afraid of losing. losing what they've already accomplished. So I'm saying this, I know this is easier said than done. It's hard to change. Life is expensive. So how do you do it? Well, you start now. You start before the next misalignment hits. You develop the mindset, the habit, the support systems that make leaving a viable option at a last resort. You prepare your vision quietly and steadily. You build skills, you keep your resume alive, you talk to people, and you practice telling your story. Why else would I be telling you to try in pointless jobs? That way, when it's time to go, you don't have to panic. You don't have to scramble. It will all be possible, and it will be yours. Leaving well isn't about quitting. It's about choosing. You'll be ready. So, I want you to try something. In your next short-term job, weird contract, or interview that feels beneath you, or hell, even just do it then tomorrow at work. Test something. Change your tone. Use a bolder question. Lead when no one's asking you to. Not because you have to, but because you can. You don't have to protect a perfect image. You don't have to play it safe. You can ask yourself, what could I try here? Who can I be here? This isn't just about watching. It's about experimenting. It's not about proving yourself. It's about discovering yourself. If you're shy, start small. Thank you again for listening to Career Coaching with John, Thoughtful Approaches for Lasting Change. This was episode 8. We're here for a good time, not a long time. Special thanks today to Trooper, Billy Bronco, whatever your name was. The kids in the shop that piss me off daily. I'm going to let Nick Panic play us out today with a song he calls 90 Seconds to Impact. I don't get it either. I'm sending this message out to young workers, to people who want to change, the ones that took a job that turned out to be not what they'd hoped for. You, me, the manager that's feeling too tired to lead. You know, I want people to try so they feel accomplished. I want people to understand that instant gratification isn't meaningful, nor does it make you resilient. But what does work? Planning, confidence, hard work. As the butler in Downton Abbey said, life is not meant to be convenient, it is meant to be endured. And if you know someone who needs to hear this message, please share it and support me by subscribing to the show. I welcome your comments and hope to hear from you soon. You can reach me at johnfielkowski.com. This was Career Coaching with John. My name is John Fielkowski. Now go enjoy your day at work.